you hear my dog bark, I do promise. I do apologize for that. So this is the PowerPoint I shared with you the other day, and I just wanted to go through it and explain a little bit about it. So again, macromolecules, four types: carbs, lipids, proteins, and nucleic acids. So the carbohydrates here are what you see with carbs, sugars, and starches are your two main types. The monomers are called monosaccharides. They are a main source of energy, and you can see here that they form long chains in your body. And when you carb load, that means that you're basically eating a lot of carbohydrates prior to maybe a race if you're a cross-country runner. They do also occur in plants. In the cell walls of plants, there's a storage facility for something called cellulose, and cellulose stores in plants as well. Most sugars usually end in ose, so lactose, cellulose, glucose, fructose, sucrose, all of those are sugars. You can see more about carbs here. Monosaccharides are simple sugars. Polysaccharides are longer sugars like your potatoes, breads, and things like that. We find glucose, fructose, and galactose in these materials here, such as table sugar, sucrose. Fructose is found in fruits that you eat. That gives them that sweet taste. Glycogen is stored in animals. That's what we store in our bodies, and once we get low in sugar, it is converted into a form of sugar that we can use. So if you're diabetic, or you know someone who's diabetic, they may have trouble storing glycogen. Starch is found in plants. It is stored in plants. That's why you find starch in potatoes. That's a root storage facility of a plant. And then, let me go back one, and then of course, if I go back one down here at the bottom that you can't see, cellulose is a plant fiber. All right, the next one that you see, you can see that this is a kind of a complex picture, but plants will contain, carbohydrates contain carbon, which is this black molecule here, hydrogen, which is not marked here, and oxygen, which is here. Those are the only three molecules found in carbohydrates. Next, we have lipids. Those are fats, oils, waxes. They are insoluble in water, meaning that they do not mix well with water. The monomers are fatty acids and glycerols. They are good energy storage molecules, but they take a long time to break down. So it takes twice, you will get twice the energy in a lipid that you do in a carb, but it takes a long time to break them down. You hear the expression, let it roll off like water on a duck's back, because ducks actually have a lipid covering in their feathers. So insulation, wax covering, and they do contain the elements carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. There's two types of fats that have been mentioned, saturated fats and unsaturated fats, and the only difference is the number of double bonds in the carbon-to-carbon chains. So if you have a saturated fat, there's no double bonds, and unsaturated fats, you have double bonds. Unsaturated fats are you can break those double bonds down. Saturated fats are kind of the worst of the two, so you want to stay away from your saturated fats if at all possible. They look like this. Here's a glycerol molecule, and here's three fatty acids. So this is one fatty acid, two fatty acids, and three fatty acids in this molecule. And this is what makes it insoluble in water. Next, we have nucleic acids. This is your DNA and RNA. Notice over here to the right, DNA, double-stranded. We'll learn more about that later. RNA is single-stranded. They do have the elements carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, along with nitrogen and phosphorus. They store, these are found in the nucleus, DNA is in the nucleus. RNA can leave the nucleus. Their monomer is a nucleotide, and I'm going to teach you a little bit later, nucleotides are made of three things: a nitrogen base, a sugar, and a phosphate. And their main goal is to build protein and to store all genetic information for latter generations. And here is your picture of your nucleotide. Here's your sugar. It's a pentose sugar, meaning it has 5 carbons, your phosphate, and your nitrogen base. So one nucleotide equals a sugar, a nitrogen base, and a phosphate. 2 of these molecules of DNA or RNA. So you get one of these molecules makes up one component of a nucleic acid. And DNA stands for deoxyribonucleic acid. RNA stands for ribonucleic acid. And here's what it looks like in a more complex form. This is DNA, and over here to the right is RNA. And lastly, we have proteins. Proteins are going to do everything, well, I shouldn't say everything, but they facilitate a lot of the reactions in your body. The monomers of proteins are amino acids. There's 20 of those that naturally occur in your body. They're used for building bone, muscle, tissue. They're used for controlling chemical reactions and what we call enzymes, extremely important. Most of the time, proteins will end in IN. Insulin, hemoglobin, words like that are proteins. Some of these help transport substances and help us fight diseases. So you'll see, we'll talk about things like immunoglobulin. Those are things that are proteins. They do contain the elements carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen. There's 20 amino acids. I mentioned that earlier. And proteins don't have to have all 20 of those. They can have 5 of those repeating over and over again. It's just like letters of the alphabet. 26 letters spell all these different words. Well, 20 amino acids will build all different types of proteins. Enzymes are what we talk about a whole lot because enzymes are specific proteins that will build that will facilitate types of reactions. And a lot of times enzymes will end in ACE. And next week we'll get into enzymes a little bit more. So there's 4 macromolecules, and here's your summary. Carbohydrates, those are your energy sources. Lipids, another energy source, but they're harder to get to. So carbs are quick energy, lipids are long-term energy. Nucleic acids are genetic information. Proteins are for structural support. Their monomers are listed here. Carbs, simple sugar, monosaccharide is the monomer. Lipids monomer, fatty acid and glycerol. Nucleic acid, their monomer is a nucleotide. And a protein's monomer is an amino acid. And here's just a little helpful hint. Sugars usually end in ose, as I said earlier, glucose, fructose, lactose. Proteins will usually end in IN. Insulin, keratin, melanin, hemoglobin, these are just tricks to help you understand, hey, I don't know what that word is, but it ends in IN, so it might be a protein. And then enzymes end in ACE, catalase, protease, polymerase. Those are all enzymes. So you may have a protein that works on a sugar in a certain molecule. So we'll talk about those as we move forward. So that's kind of a rundown on what I wanted to discuss with you today on the macromolecules. I hope that helps. You can use this video and this PowerPoint tomorrow when you take your quiz. Hope you have a great day.